What are heavy metals and how do they pollute the environment? Educational about science and medicine, prepared by the editors of website facebook.com allscientifical. What are heavy metals? Heavy metals are chemical elements with an atomic mass greater than 50 or with a density greater than 8 gram per cubical centimeter. This category includes such elements as uranium, thorium, mercury, antimony, cadmium, tin, bismuth, zinc, lead, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, and other metals and chemical elements. What factors affect the solubility of heavy metals in nature? The main factors that affect the solubility of heavy metals in environment are pH, the presence of ligands in solution, redox potential. For example, at an acidic pH, metals dissolve in the soils and are more likely to enter the aquatic environment. What else is interesting? The main reason for getting heavy metal into environment is wastewater from various industrial facilities, some pesticide and fertilizer, acid rain, that is acidification. Acid rain is associated with the fact that by reducing the pH of the soil, metals dissolve, falling into aquatic environment. The first heavy metal we touched on is vanadium. Vanadium is a very important chemical element for our industry. Sources of pollution are asphalt, bitumen, coal, iron ore, oil. This metal is used in the manufacture of various semi-finished products. The content of vanadium in natural reservoirs. For example, in rivers and lakes, the content ranges from 220 to 4.5 micrograms per liter. In seawater, about 2 micrograms per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for the aquatic environment is 1 per 10 mg per liter, and the maximum permissible concentration for fisheries ponds 1 micrograms per liter of water. Effects of vanadium on health, toxicity and biological function. There is a positive effect of vanadium on the control of sugar levels in diabetes mellitus. The negative effect of vanadium is that all its compounds of this chemical element are actually toxic to the respiratory system, blood parameters, liver, and of course other organs. Everything depends on the concentration of this chemical element. Bismuth is another interesting chemical element and heavy metal. Sources of pollution can be glass production, perfumery products, minerals containing bismuth, and pharmaceutical factories for the production of various products such as bandages. The content of bismuth in natural reservoirs. The number varies. For example, in rivers and lakes, the concentration of bismuth is less than 1 micrograms per liter, and seawater less than 1 per 200 micrograms per liter, and the maximum allowable concentration for aquatic environment is 1 per 10 mg per liter. Bismuth health effects, toxicity and biological function. Let's start with the fact that the negative effect of bismuth is less than lead, arsenic, antimony. It is used in manufacture of various medicine for the treatment of diarrhea, shigellosis, eye infection, as well as in cosmetic under the guise of bismuth oxide chloride for coloring the eyes. Iron. Iron is one of the most famous metals. Source of pollution can be many minerals and rocks. wastewater from metallurgical plants, for metalworking plant, from paint and varnish plant, from textile plants, minerals that contain hematite, vivianite, magnetite. It is the most well-known mineral that can be a source of iron contamination in nature. The content of iron in natural reservoir. In rivers and lakes, the iron content varies from 1/10 to 1 mg per liter of water, and sometimes even up to 100 mg per liter. In winter and summer the concentration increases, in spring and autumn it decreases. Maximum permissible concentration for aquatic environment is 0.3 mg per liter, and for fishery ponds 0.10 mg per liter. The effects of iron on health. Everyone knows that iron is an important trace element found in hemoglobin. The human body contains iron in a range of 0.005%, and excess of iron in diet can be cause of various disorders, even cancer, digestive disorders, hemochromatosis, colorectal cancer. Cadmium is a dangerous metal, a chemical element, but very important for our gadgets. Sources of pollution can be copper and polymetallic ores, grignocite, howlite, otavite. Wastewater containing cadmium from ore processing plants, electroplating plants, chemical plants, metallurgical plants. Content of cadmium in natural reservoirs. In rivers and lakes, the cadmium content is less 1 microgram per liter, sometimes even a few micrograms per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for the aquatic environment is 1 microgram per liter, and for fishery reservoirs about 5 micrograms per liter of cadmium. This metal is very similar in chemical properties to zinc. For this reason it can replace it, but is very dangerous for the human body. Less toxicity poses to plant. In human, cadmium affects the central nervous system, liver, kidneys, destroy its bones, violate phosphor culture's metabolism. Cobalt. Source of cobalt pollution are industrial activity, chemical enterprises, metallurgical enterprises, metalworking enterprises, decomposition of organism, copper and other ores. Content of cobalt in natural reservoirs. In rivers and lakes, the cobalt content ranges from a few micrograms per liter to several milligrams per liter. In seawater, about 0.5 microgram per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.1 mg per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for fish pond is 10 micrograms per liter. For seawater, 5 micrograms per liter. Health effects of cobalt, toxicity and biological function. Cobalt is a trace mineral element found in vitamin B12. The negative impact of cobalt under other forms is a cancerogen, especially in large quantity. Causes cardiomyopathy, possibly causes cancer. Contact dermatitis may cause respiratory problems. Manganese is a very important chemical element, especially for plants. Sources of pollution are water from means chemical industrial metallurgy. It also released during the leaching of minerals and ores, black ochre, brownite, pyrrolizite, psilomelan, as well as during the decomposition of organisms, especially plants. Manganese is involved in photosynthesis. Content of manganese in natural reservoirs and rivers and lakes up to 160 micrograms per liter, in seawater about 2 micrograms per liter. The maximum allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.1 milligrams per liter. The maximum allowable concentration for the fish ponds is 0.01 micrograms per liter. For marine reservoir, it is 0.05 milligrams per liter. Health effects of manganese, toxicity and biological function. Let's start with the fact that the negative impact is that it can cause neurodegenerative disorders, necrosis of mucous membranes. Manganese affects the kidneys and liver in large quantity, but manganese is part of some very important enzyme, superoxide dismutase and arginase. Copper. Sources of copper pollution are wastewater from mines, chemical plants, metallurgical plants, which is also released into aquatic environment during pipeline erosion. Important sources of pollution are agriculture, minerals and industry. Of the minerals, it is very important to note malachite, bornite, azurite, chalcopyrite, brontantin, chalcocite. The content of copper in natural reservoirs. In rivers and lakes, the copper content vary from 2 to 30 micrograms per liter. In seawater, 0.5 3.5 micrograms per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.1 milligrams per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for fish ponds is 0.001 milligrams per liter. For marine reservoirs, 0.005 milligrams per liter. How does copper affect health, toxicity and biological function? In large quantity, it causes acute toxicity in humans, Wilson-Westphal convalescent disease, cirrhosis of the liver, Alzheimer's disease. It is also an important trace element participating in process of aerobic respiration in oxidative phosphorylation in small quantity. Another important chemical element, but also heavy metal, is molybdenum. Sources of pollution are non-ferrous metallurgy and minerals which, under the influence of acid rain, release molybdenum. Of the minerals, it should be noted wulfenite, molybdenite, paolite. Content of molybdenum in natural reservoirs. In rivers and lakes, the content vary from 2.1 to 10.6 micrograms per liter, and seawater the content of molybdenum is about 10 micrograms per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for aquatic environment is 0.25 milligrams per liter, and the maximum permissible concentration for fishery reservoirs is 0.001 milligrams per liter. Health effects of molybdenum, toxicity and biological function. The negative effect of molybdenum is that dust and smoke with a high content of molybdenum are toxic, may cause fatigue, headache, joint pain, but is also an essential micronutrient. It is part of 50 enzymes in living organisms. What is wrong with this arsenic? Arsenic, which got rid of Napoleon, has such source of pollution: agriculture, mineral mines, tungsten, copper, cobalt, polymetallic, mineral processing industry, pesticide and dye production enterprises. Many countries have phased out pesticides that contain arsenic. Arsenic content in natural water bodies. In rivers and lakes, a few micrograms per liter. In seawater, about 3 micrograms per liter. The maximum allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 10 micrograms per liter, and the maximum allowable concentration for fish ponds is 50 micrograms per liter. Health effects of arsenic, toxicity and biological function. Some bacteria can metabolize arsenic, but not human. For human it is toxic, even in small quantity, and a carcinogen, causes skin cancer, lung cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer. Another metal is nickel. The source of nickel pollution are local rocks, deposit of nickel and iron nickel ores, production of synthetic rubber, burning of coal and oil, decomposition of plants and animals. Cost mentioned that nickel is a trace element, especially for plants. Nickel content in natural water body. The content in rivers and lakes is 0.8 to 10 micrograms per liter, and seawater up to 2 micrograms per liter. Maximal allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.02 milligrams per liter, and the maximum allowable concentration for fisheries is 0.01 milligrams per liter. How does nickel affect health, toxicity and biological function? Let's start with the fact that nickel is important for living organisms, especially for plants. Negatively affects human, is carcinogenic, may cause swelling of the respiratory system and contact dermatitis, so be careful with the coins. Tin. Tin is a low toxic metal, but the source of pollution are the production of organic paints, the metallurgical industry, minerals, stannine, cassiterite, but it's very important in what form the tin is. The content of tin in natural reservoir. In rivers and lakes less than 1 micrograms per liter. Maximum allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 2 milligrams per liter, and the maximum permissible concentration for fishery is 0.112 milligrams per liter. How does tin affect health? Tin is a low toxic metal and is used to make canned food. Tin has no special biochemical function. It is not characterized by special toxicological properties, but under the guise of some compound it can cause vomiting, nausea, diarrhea. Organic tin compounds are toxic to humans, but also to animals. Mercury is an important chemical element but very toxic to all organisms. Sources of pollution are warm power plants, mercury deposits, and the guise of minerals, livingstone, cinnabar, metacinabarite, and wastewater for the production of various drugs, pesticide dyes, but we cannot live without mercury. Mercury content in natural water body. In rivers and lakes, the content of mercury is 0.1 micrograms per liter. In seawater, 0.03 micrograms per liter. The maximum allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.5 micrograms per liter, and the maximum allowable concentration for fish ponds is 0.01 micrograms per liter, and for marine reservoirs it is 0.1 micrograms per liter. Effects of mercury on health. As you understand, there are no special positive properties of mercury in humans and animals. The negative effect is that mercury is very toxic. The negative effect of mercury is seen on the brain, on the kidneys, on the lungs. This is primary, but other organs suffer from the influence of mercury, especially under the guise of various compounds. Lead is a very famous chemical element. Sources of pollution are burning coal, washing off lead minerals, galena, anglezite, cerussite, discharge from ore dressing factories, wastewater from mines and smelters, and the use of tetraethyl lead in fuel. But this was in past. Now tetraethyl lead is used less often. The content of lead in natural water bodies. The rivers and lakes contain a few micrograms per liter. The maximum allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.01 milligrams per liter, and the maximum allowable concentration for fisheries is 0.006 milligrams per liter, and for marine reservoirs it is 0.01 milligrams per liter. But how does lead affect health? Well, of course it is negative. Functions specific to animals, plants and humans have not been identified. The negative effect is that it is very toxic to the brain, to the kidneys, causes anemia and reduces fertility in women. Another metal is silver. Many are familiar with silver. Sources of pollution are underground reservoirs, mines, wastewater from photographic plants, enrichment factories, algae and bacterial agents, especially under the guise of compounds, is toxic. The content of silver in natural reservoirs. In rivers and lakes less 1 micrograms per liter, and seawater 0.3 micrograms per liter. The maximum permissible concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.05 milligrams per liter. How does silver affect health? Learn about toxicity and biological function. The negative effect of silver is that it is toxic under the guise of nitrate and fluoride, because the compounds are very soluble in water. May occur gastroenteritis, diarrhea, hypotension, paralysis. A positive effect of silver on health has not been identified. It is not characterized by biochemical importance. Antimony. Source of pollution with this chemical element are wastewater from the production of matches, from the production of paints, from the production of glass, from the production of rubber. Antimony minerals: stibioticanite, stibnite, valentinite, cinnamontite. We cannot do without this chemical element. The content of antimony in natural water body. Rivers and lakes contain less 1 micrograms per liter, seawater 0.5 micrograms per liter. The maximum allowable concentration for the aquatic environment is 0.05 milligrams per liter, and the maximum allowable concentration for fisheries is 0.01 milligrams per liter. Health effects of antimony, toxicity and biological function. Let's start with the negative effects. Antimony possibly cause cancer, dermatitis, gastrointestinal symptoms, cardiac arrhythmia, tooth decay. Antimony is not characterized by biochemical importance, even in small quantity. Highly interesting chemical element chromium. Source of chromium contamination are industry, tanneries, electroplating, textile plants, chemical plants, chromium minerals, crocoite, chromite, uvarovite, and in composition of plants and animals. The content of chromium in natural reservoirs. In rivers and lakes, the content is less than 10 micrograms per liter. In seawater, 0.05 micrograms per liter. Maximum allowable concentration for aquatic environment for chrome 6 is 0.05 milligrams per liter. For chrome 3 is 0.5 milligrams per liter. As can be seen, the maximum available concentration for chrome 6 is less compared to chrome 3. Chrome 6 is very dangerous, is cancerogen. Negative effect the kidney, livers, blood cells, cause cancer. Chrome 3 has a positive effect on carbohydrate metabolism in small amounts, of course. Zinc is also a very familiar chemical element, a heavy metal. Sources of zinc pollution are sewage from the production of parchment paper, the production of viscose fiber, electroplating plants, from the production of mineral paints, as well as zinc minerals, sphalerite, smithsonite, calamine, goslarite, zincite. The content of zinc in natural water body. In rivers and lakes, the zinc content varies from 3 to 120 micrograms per liter. In seawater, from 1.5 to 10 micrograms per liter. The maximum available concentration for aquatic environment is 1 milligrams per liter, and the maximum available concentration for fisheries is 0.01 milligrams per liter. How does zinc affect health? Zinc is also a trace element, but it also has a negative effect. May cause severe poison and hemolytic anemia, as well as ataxia. For most organisms, it is an essential trace element, participates in various processes. That's all. Thank you for your attention. This material was prepared on the basis of material from the website netbolezny.ru. This material is for informational purposes only. When observing various symptoms, it is recommended to consult a doctor. Subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Bye bye.